And marker.
All right, and we're in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Affable Chat Offscript, the episodes of Affable Chat that aren't explicitly about movies. This episode can be listened to anywhere you find your podcasts, or you can watch it on youtube.com. We have this website. It's called youtube.com, and there's a Affable Chat channel on there, and you can see this live, or not live, pre-recorded there. I'm Benjamin.
You see our faces move.
That's right. I'm Benjamin, and this is my co-host, Joey.
Hey, how's it going?
And what's going on, Joey? Did you have a good Christmas?
I did have a good Christmas. It was nice to see my family. It was nice to kind of relax and everything and have some time off, for sure.
Definitely.
What about you?
Yeah, it was great. I got an air fryer, which is apparently what everyone got. So it was a fantastic
Gift of the
Christmas.
season.
Yeah.
This year's PlayStation 5 has been overturned for the air fryer.
Imagine being a 15-year-old kid, 14-year-old kid, tearing open a large box under the tree, thinking, oh man, I really hit it big this time, and finding a air fryer in there. You'd be just as happy.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about.
You open it up and it's a PlayStation 5 and you're like, oh no, I wanted an air fryer.
Oh, what am I going to
And then you open up something else and it's an attachment, like you plug it into the PlayStation 5 and it's an air fryer as well. It just like powers from the
That's
PlayStation 5.
That's why PlayStation 5s are so hard to find, is because they're also an air fryer. So you
I thought it was because of being mistaken for air fryers. People are buying them like, this air fryer is expensive, but it's worth it.
It's yeah, no, I'm excited about it though. I'm gonna make my sweet potato fries is gonna be my number one thing that I try out. That's gonna be the first one I try out because I want to eat a little healthier, but still have something tasty. So that's something I'm excited about. But there's also something else I'm excited about, Joey. And you already know this because I talked about it on the stream yesterday. But I am a fantasy football champion now.
Oh, congratulations!
Once again, yes. And as every stereotypical sports dude wants to be, I am the champion of my fantasy football league with all my friends. And dude, it was not easy. Some people think that you just watch the games, you just set your lineup and you watch the game. But really, if you want to win a championship, you have to do what I did, which was strain really hard and try to will your players to get the ball and will your opponent's players to not get the ball.
So it's a lot of like visualization and actualization. Like you're sitting there like, Tom Brady, I need you to get the ball more. I don't know what Tom Brady does. Does he get the ball or does he throw the ball?
You want him to throw the ball more. But Tom Brady did throw the ball to one of my guys a whole bunch, and that helped me win. But I'm putting it on the screen. You won't be able to see it, but you'll know what I'm talking about. The straining kid meme. The kid who's sitting in class straining really hard with the veins bulging out of his forehead. That was me for about 11 hours straight on Sunday, and it was exhausting. And I know that a lot of people are probably saying that was unnecessary. The same things would have happened whether or not you sat and strained like that, whether you popped blood vessels or not. And all I can say is, I'm a champion and you're not.
You can't prove that didn't work.
Exactly. So, yeah, it was so exhausting. I actually didn't even watch Monday Night Football because I was so tired from Sunday. So,
what? I don't even understand how that makes sense. Like you got so into football that you couldn't watch any more football.
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
You got it exactly right, Joey. It was
it's like you blew your load on football too early, and now you're just like sitting there
spent.
like, I cannot do another football right now.
That you've got it. You're hitting the nail on the head, Joey. That's it might sound weird to a non-sports weeb like yourself. But I'm sure there are plenty of other guys who have just completed another exhausting fantasy football season, and I need a vacation. I need something that I can kick back and watch without active participation.
Yeah. Well, you don't ever really actively participate, but I mean, the fantasy football stuff is actively participating because you're worried about how this is going to play out, right? Because you have to decide. Do you need to make decisions every week about what
big time
players do what and stuff?
No, it's the thing I always tell people if you're not involved in sports at all is like, it's like the stock market, basically. Like you purchase stocks in players. You're like, I think this guy's going to have a statistically good season, so I'm going to get him on my squad. And then beyond there, information is power. So you have to constantly read about the players, see what's going on, who's got COVID, who doesn't, all that stuff, so that you can make the smartest decisions, because it's luck. It's, you don't know exactly how the game's going to go, but information does influence the outcome. So it's why I don't think like seeing how I acted on Sunday, seeing myself act that way, is why I can't gamble on sports. Can you imagine if there was an actual? I mean, there's like a small financial risk in fantasy football. It cost me $30 to play in this league, but can you imagine if I had if my rent was on the line and I'm sitting there like, please throw the ball to my guy? I couldn't do it, man. I don't gamble.
I mean, what you're describing, it doesn't sound like you're sounds like you're almost there already, just without that,
I'm gambling.
How much more at this point? You might as well, because you can't get much more stressed at this, Well, you might as well just go all the way.
You're right. I'm already at the edge. But what I'm doing is I'm gambling with my emotions, man. And I'm okay with hurting my own feelings sometimes, as long as there's other times where I come out on top. I mean, I'm a champion, and now I'm making it everyone else's problem. So it's definitely worth it. And I'll have we bought a physical trophy last season. We pooled our money in the league, and I'll be able to show that off in the near future.
Well, congratulations on your win.
Thank you, Dave. That was a loud applause, but well warranted. I truly feel like I've earned it, so thank you.
You're welcome. All for you. So I can't wait for the when can I join a fantasy football league where I bet on how well fantasy football players are going to do. I know enough people in fantasy leagues that I could combine them together and get a bunch of other people that know them and just say, okay, well, I'm going to pool from this league, and I think this guy's going to win this week, and I think this guy's going to win from this league this week, and then I have I bet on that, and then I have a championship on that.
Oh, right.
Well, you could you just go all the way up the line, right? You can find a famous fantasy football league and find players in there and
yes,
bet on them and their ability to understand football.
Well, what I was
at what point does it get is that too far to removed? I mean, at that point, you probably could call them and say, I think you should throw this game for me, but but I don't know.
But if they have enough money on the line, you wouldn't be able to convince them.
Right. There's so much on the line, Well, it's just like you're saying. If they're out sick because they got COVID, or they're out out of vacation or something with their family,
yes,
that week it might not be so good. Might not be paying attention as closely.
No,
you might miss something.
Michael's got to go to a wedding this weekend, so
instead of reading sports blogs, you're just following people on Facebook and up whatever their statuses are.
That's what I was gonna say. Instead of reading articles on Bleacher Report about the players, you'd be reading their social media to figure out what they're paying attention to right now. It's ooh, he's going through he's going through a breakup right now. I cannot trust his decision making.
Benjamin just discovered Queen's Gambit. He's out for at least a week.
Oh, that's funny. We're probably not far from that. All we need is someone to set up the website, and then the gamblers. I
can't be the first person who's thought of this, so I mean, it's got to happen.
People will find anything to gamble on. If you've ever looked at what's available for you on those daily gambling websites, you can gamble on literally anything. So maybe it already exists for the people who are willing to throw their money at it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not for me. I feel like I would be interested for a little while, and then I would just kind of fall off. It seems like it's too much time to invest in something that, doesn't matter that much.
It finds at the end of the day, it's like a lot of things for me. It's the social part of it. I'm friends with there's guys who are in my life now almost exclusively because we've been in a fantasy football league together forever. And it's every year we get together for the draft virtually most of the time. But, there's that. And then everybody pays attention to the comings and goings, and we have a subreddit. It's just a thing to do with guys, just guys being dudes.
Guys being guys.
Yeah, guys being dudes. Yeah. It's just how it is.
Yeah, well, it sounds fun. It's just I don't know. it seems like a lot of work
Yeah.
to like pay attention to all this
Oh yeah.
other stuff.
No, it's
and like at a certain point, it's like, well, it doesn't matter because like I could screw myself by thinking I know it's going to happen and then it not happening, right? So I might as well just like sit out or something. I don't know. Maybe that's
no,
kind of
and
simplistic.
It at the end of the day, it has to be something that you just organically enjoy. Like for me, it's just
Right.
I already love watching sports, and this just adds a little bit of extra payoff for sports. But yeah, it is definitely something where when it ends, at this point, a lot of times I'm like, thank goodness, because now I can just watch the game and not have to sit there and do the straining kid meme the whole time.
Right. And there's not so much on the line anymore.
Yeah.
It's so funny to me. It's just like there's so much weight behind it at that point, you know, and you're just like exhausted by the whole thing, but you're ready to do it next year, you know?
By the time, you get a nice, that's the nice thing about football is the season's short. So you get a nice long break. And by the time it comes around, you want it again. When I was a little kid and I first got into football, when this off season came, like I got like seasonal affective disorder, but like the reverse, because it was during the spring and summer. I was like, oh man, when's football coming back? You know, and so like I'd be watching, you know, NFL Network off season where they're talking about nothing, and I'm like, man, I can't wait for football to come back. I'm not like that anymore. Now I kind of welcome the off season, but it's definitely something that you get used to, that cycle.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It's like the seasons and everything, right? So you get this long break of like, oh man, I was so used to that routine, and then you're just like you're missing it.
Yeah,
you're craving that little bit of football.
And I think that I've grown a little bit as a media consumer, where I used to be like, how can I find more football to consume? And now I'm like, dang, I wish there wasn't so much football on during the season because I'd like to be watching other stuff. And I think that this podcast has probably been a big part of that. You've helped me to grow, Joey.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the podcast, we recently did an episode on Die Hard. And after we did our episode, I ran across this thing. It was an interview from John McTiernan, who directed the movie. And the interview is very strange because he's like obviously filmed it himself, but he's like facing away from the camera. He's like facing like this, and he's like talking, but he keeps like turning toward the camera to like punctuate his points.
Well, is the person like interviewing him and like on the side?
There's not a person there. He set up the camera himself.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's like, I guess it is part of an interview or something, but basically he was asked about Die Hard as a Christmas movie, and he gave this very, very interesting response because he said that he had always intended for it to be a Christmas movie and actually was trying to emulate It's a Wonderful Life more so than any other movie. Right. And even though the movie came out in the summer and it still had this Christmas theme to it that he was trying to put in there as a subtle nod, as he says it, like some sort of critique of like capitalism in general, which is, I know it's kind of a weird take, but he says like when the script first came to him, he kept sending it back because he didn't like the hero, and he insisted that the hero had to be an everyman, that he had to be a normal working class guy, and he establishes that very early in the movie. And then he goes on to make the rest of the movie is about how that guy is better equipped than any other authority figure in the movie. The FBI is ridiculous. You know, we've talked about this a little bit. The police captain, he doesn't know what's going on or anything. And even the terrorists aren't terrorists. They are they're bank robbers. So they're after money, right?
Right.
And which like is interesting too, because in the original script, I guess, they were supposed to be leftist terrorists who are there to cause, you know, a disruption,
to destroy the corporation, cause damage to capital.
But that wasn't the goal in the movie. Their goal in the movie was to like siphon off some of the money that the capitalists had done, which is, you know, you might say maybe a very capitalist goal. I don't know. But there's all these little kind of moments in there where like at the very end when all the papers are falling down on all the citizens, kind of like this redistribution kind of scene. Just like how what's his name? Al Powell, the cop he's also
Carl
kind of
Winslow.
working class. Right. He's also the like the hero of the story because he's like a working class guy and he stands up to the man, and that's all to his benefit and everything. So yeah, it's actually pretty interesting, and he has this interesting kind of quote at the end, which I want to play for you, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get it just right, but let me just try and play it from here and see what you think.
Okay. The best I can tell you about it. I hope that you all, people my age, grew up.
Okay, so first, before I get way into this, he talks like every director I've ever seen in an interview, which he's like very full of himself. Like he's so like I am a thinker, I am thinking, and I am painting with my paintbrush kind of thing. But like he's kind of endearing in his own way. So
okay,
just listen.
Came to adulthood worrying about politics, thinking about politics, trying to study it, trying to understand it. And when we got to be 25 or 30, most of us said, it's going to work out. All we have to do is be decently educated middle-class folks. And, the force of history it'll work out. So these last 4 years have been scary as hell, because particularly for if you're our age, because it looks like it isn't going to work out. There are genuinely evil people out there. And there's a line from Lincoln that keeps going around in my head, which is actually from Micah through by way of Jesus, by way of the Apostle Matthew, which is that a house divided against itself will not stand, which I take to mean that you will not successfully compromise with evil, which if you've spent your life thinking you are making acceptable compromises is a sad thing to think about. So my hope at Christmas this year is that you will all remember that authoritarians are low status, angry men who have gone to rich people and said, if you give us power, we'll make sure nobody takes your stuff. And that's the essence of authoritarianism. And that's always been the essence of it. And their obsession with guns and boots and uniforms and squad cars and all that stuff, all those things are the masks of power, meant to scare us, meant to shut us up so we don't kick them to the side of the road and the decent people of the world get on with building the future.
There you go. So
wow.
Yeah,
when
pretty
was
interesting.
That? Was that recent?
2 weeks ago. Yep.
Wow.
This clip is from the American Film Institute. They put it on their YouTube channel, and they have little clips in there. So the interview is interesting. It's only about 12 minutes long. You can check it out yourself. And yeah, I think that last little bit is very telling about like kind of his philosophy, which he claims is what he was thinking of when he was making Die Hard.
I think some of that comes through.
Yeah, I think at first, like when I first heard about this interview and I was reading about it, it seemed kind of opportunistic. Like he was trying to jump on like the Die Hard is a Christmas movie bandwagon. But he makes the claim that that was always his goal. And the scene from It's a Wonderful Life that really stuck with him was the scenes when George Bailey is no longer exists, right? Where he's shown the Pottersville or whatever it's called, instead of the town that he grew up in. And he shows how this is like crony capitalism, cowboy capitalism run amok, and what that looks like. And he's like, this was supposed to be a cautionary tale for people. And unfortunately, we're seeing Pottersvilles all over the country now. And he was trying to kind of subvert that in his own way with this movie, with Die Hard too. He actually claims that he was sneaking this message in by putting it into a mainstream movie. He thought that they wouldn't notice if he did it this way. And, you can say maybe people didn't, because this is not a take I've heard before. I've heard Die Hard is a Christmas movie, but not that Die Hard is a socialist movie.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we just spent a while, trying to decipher the meanings of that movie, and that wasn't really something we came to either.
No.
It's definitely it's kind of hidden, I guess. It's interesting to bring this up because while I was home for Christmas, I finally saw It's a Wonderful Life for the first time since I was like 8 or something. And I used to think when A Wonderful Life came on when I was a kid, I was like, oh no, not boring black and white long movie. This movie sucks, you know? Because I was a little kid and I didn't understand finances. I think that was the biggest thing I was like, the bank and loan, they invented a business that does nothing that you can see. How is it building a life? I have no idea what they're talking about. And then all these people run in and they want money and he gives them some of the money. What is that? Like, as a kid, I just flew right over my head. But
Yeah.
I finally watched it again. And oh my gosh, I cried. It's so good. Like,
It's such a good movie.
it's so beautiful. Like, it's one of those things that makes you just like, oh man, like I like my fellow man is good, and it just honestly destroyed me emotionally in the best way. So I'm glad you brought that up because I really enjoyed that movie.
That movie's really great.
This past
for
Christmas.
sure. I'm surprised they haven't remade it and tried to ruin it.
Right?
So.
Yeah, starring Robert Pattinson as George Bailey. And
He could be good. I would, he's not too bad.
no, I mean, but wouldn't he? I mean, I feel like he would. It sounds like he's on a hot streak right now.
Yeah, he's Batman, isn't he?
Yes, he's Batman. He was in Tenet. He's well, the reason I bring him up specifically is because I was listening to a podcast talking about movies, and they were saying that he could be like the next Christian Bale, and I was like, whoa, that is insanely high praise. Maybe I'm not paying enough attention to this guy because I only thought of him as shiny vampire boy from Twilight, but maybe I'm not giving him enough credit because it's not fair. It's not fair to write off something just because it's popular with teenage girls. It doesn't mean that Robert Pattinson is good or bad, right? It's just something he's been in. Christian Bale's been in some weird stuff, so there's a chance. It just made me be like, maybe I need to be paying a little bit more attention to him. I want to see Tenet. Maybe,
I do too. I haven't seen it yet.
Maybe he's good in it.
I was trying to see it in theaters, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I think I'm just going to get it on Redbox or something.
Yeah, that'd probably be the way.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen him in that much stuff either, I guess. I feel like I'm trying to think of something that he's been in recently that I've seen him in. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's probably a fine actor. And yeah, the Twilight movies kind of like ruined a lot of people's careers, I think. A lot of people were kind of didn't want to go near that. But,
yeah,
I think there's probably worse stuff out there for sure. So
for sure. Well, and it also, I don't know, just like being a part of it doesn't necessarily mean it's not like Robert Pattinson wrote those books.
No.
He's just an actor.
Or wrote the movies. He's just an actor in the movie. Yeah,
exactly.
And I always think about this. Like, I don't think actors in movies realize what the movie is while they're making it.
That's literally. I saw a headline today where Robert Pattinson said, "For the majority of the filming of Tenet, I didn't know what the movie was about." And which I think,
well, people don't understand what the movie's about after they watch it.
Right,
So
which I think
not really helpful either.
is part of the whole paradigm of Tenet, where it's like,
yes, for sure.
It's
too confusing.
Well, they're like, do you remember how much you loved how confusing Inception was? Like that's literally what
Inception was not even confusing. Come on,
that was the pitch that I've heard. Is they're like, you remember how much your brains got blown out of your ears when you watched Inception? Well, get ready for Tenet, where it's like even more confusing. Which you're right. Yeah. Inception wasn't like overly confusing, but it was kind of mind bending to be like, oh man, look at all the levels in time moves at different rates and different levels.
Yeah, no, it was mind bending, but it was very clear about what was going on.
But was it real or not at the end, Joey? Come on.
Christopher Nolan always says that there is answers to these ambiguous questions in his movies. That you just have to watch it and it'll become obvious to you, which is kind of like a,
as opposed to like not knowing because you didn't see the movie
or not knowing because there is no answer.
Right. But he's saying that you just have to watch the movie. So
just keep watching it over and over again. Which that's what he says.
I did. I watched Inception 4 times when I first saw it. I didn't see it until it was on DVD and I was like, huh? And I watched it again and I watched it with subtitles. So good. I just wanted to exist in that world, though. I just wanted to be able to go between dream worlds and disguise myself.
Do such crazy stuff.
Yeah, and disguise myself as something and walk on the ceiling with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like that movie had everything.
Yeah.
I need to watch it again.
It's a good one.
It's been a while. But I don't want to. I know I kind of put us on a tangent from that quote, but was there anything else you want to say about Die Hard?
No, I'm good with Die Hard. I think, I didn't give it enough credit, I think, when we were watching it. I think there may be something deeper there that we didn't quite catch on.
Well,
So.
I plan on revisiting it next Christmas because, just like the director said, it's definitely a Christmas
movie. Undeniable.
Undeniably. Well, actually, I have an interesting real life thing I did this over the Christmas holiday. Something that I haven't done a whole lot of real life stuff for a while, and it was epic. It was my dad recently cut down some trees in our backyard, and he wanted me to help him split some wood for the fire. And,
oh my!
Yeah, right. Which sounds like some real He-Man stuff. You ever split wood with an axe?
No.
It's tough, but that's not what we did. My dad actually has a hydraulic wood splitter, which basically it looks like almost like it has like this shape, like a kind of a paper football field goal is what I'm making with my fingers, but it's made out of this heavy metal, and in between the points here, there's a wedge that moves hydraulically. So you place a piece of wood inside these barriers, and then it goes in between and just splits whatever is in between there in half, right? So am I painting the picture correctly for you, Joey? Like,
I think so.
Basically, you just have like a wall on each side and this wedge that moves from wall to wall, and you place a piece of wood inside of it, and the hydraulic like power can go through anything. So it just moves right through these huge pieces of wood. And the whole time that we were doing it, because it runs on gas, so it's super loud while you're using it. I also got to use a chainsaw to cut the pieces of wood so that they were close, like small enough to fit into the wedge. So a lot of gasoline being burned, but the whole time I was watching these giant pieces of wood get split in half, I was like, if my dad wanted to start a TikTok account, he's got everything he needs right here.
Everything goes back to, how do I make this into content?
Exactly. That's how.
How do I make splitting wood into content? Have you watched any of those hydraulic press videos?
Of course. How can you avoid them?
They're fascinating.
They're so satisfying, and that's what I'm talking about. It's that same genre of watching. It's like, what would happen if I put a garden gnome in my hydraulic wood splitter? And you film it, and then you get 3 million likes on TikTok. That's
Dang.
So that's what I told my dad, and he was like not interested at all. But that's how my mind works right now. As I saw that, and I was like,
yeah, you got the TikTok brain.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I bet that was fascinating, though. Those kind of machines are very mesmerizing.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. No, it was great. I mean, I don't know. You can tell I've been inside for too long when I'm like really wanted to do some manual labor. It was actually really nice to be out there. It was a mild day in South Carolina, so you can work up a sweat without getting too hot and just get something done. Because actually, at the end of the day, we took all the split wood and we made a bonfire. Not all the split wood. We split so much wood. We could have. We'd be giving away firewood, but we ended up, and then we made some s'mores. So it was good outdoor fun in the South Carolina suburbs. Dude, you know what happens really in the suburbs? Folks are burning stuff in the suburbs. Folks are burning stuff all day. We were burning stuff. I saw like 5 different backyards with various things on fire. Sometimes it's bonfires, but sometimes it's just a pile of leaves. And I'm never 100% certain that it's not an emergency. You know, when I see like a huge smokestack coming from behind a house, I'm like, maybe I should do something about
maybe
this.
That house is on fire.
Right. But I'm like, nah, people in the suburbs are just burning stuff. That's just how they do it.
People don't burn stuff in my neighborhood that much, but in Jenny's neighborhood, she says they were always burning stuff. She said every clear day someone was burning something, and she never like got the feeling of like a cool breeze and like a nice day because people were always burning stuff.
Yeah. That's another effect of me spending too much time in the apartments is that I get to the suburbs and I'm seeing things that the suburbanites have just grown blind to.
Oh, these different people out here in the suburbs. What kind of strange rituals do they get up to? Look, they have so much stuff they could just burn it.
Look at how
amazing.
Look how
excess. So much excess they could just burn it.
So much elbow room. These people.
Where do you get the? Oh, so you have trees in your backyard, I guess.
Yeah, actually, my dad bought an RV are like one that you tow behind a truck,
Yeah.
And the neighborhood association was like, that's an eyesore. So you have to hide it behind a wall so that we can't see it from the street anymore. So my dad literally built the wall. He built
the wall?
Yeah, he built
the one. How did he pay for it?
He got his neighbors to pay for it. No, he built it. He built it himself, and then to do that, he had to have a place to park it. So he had to lay down some pavement in the backyard, and he had to take out a couple trees for that. And
gotcha.
And then he just had so much extra firewood.
So much wood to do it. What about the stumps? Did he like?
I think he had somebody come and take those out because they come and tear them up out of the ground.
We recently had a tree taken down in my house too. But they had this huge crane thing. It was a remote controlled crane. My dad took a video of it. I wasn't there when it happened. The tree has been there since I was little.
Yeah.
It's a huge tree. And what it would do is it would take this big claw that would come up and it would grab whatever like this. Okay, I'm doing this on purpose.
I'm seeing
grab this and like this, and then it would have this little saw that would go and cut through whatever it was, and then it would be holding on to the piece that it just cut, so it would just like pull away, and so then that way stuff wasn't falling in the street or on people's heads or anything. And then there was a guy like on the ground with a remote control who was actually controlling the crane from the ground and could like see everything that was going on and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually saw a crane like that in use recently at my work. They were doing some cleaning up some of the trees that had overgrown over the parking lot. And we were theorizing as to how a guy gets that job. And we think that it's
a cool job.
Well, we think it's a guy who goes to the arcade all the time and he's winning at the claw game. And then
oh my God,
he's killing it. And then someday a guy in a suit and sunglasses comes up, sir, come with us. And then they take him. First off, they take him out of the arcade because the arcade's losing massive amounts of money on prizes because this guy keeps scoring big on the claw game. But then they also give him this big time job where they're like, we want you to man the big claw now.
The big crane. You like cranes? This one will give you all sorts of prizes.
Oh yes.
Yes, that's funny. That's some real Last Starfighter stuff.
Yeah, and it was great. I mean, I feel like that would be a lot of fun to move big machinery like that.
Yeah,
around.
yeah, definitely. I have to disagree. I don't think that's happens because I'm good at the claw game, and I've never been approached by government agents to star in my own claw-based company.
You must not be that good if you're.
I'm pretty good.
Oh.
I've won many times.
What have you won?
So.
Give me some of your prizes. Tell me some of your prizes.
I have one like a little blue bear, a little purple dragon thing. I can show you actually. I have a couple right here.
Okay.
I have one. I have a like a woolly mammoth who I called Aardvark because I thought he was an Aardvark until I pulled him out and realized he was a woolly mammoth.
Wait, you've got him close. Okay, Joey is getting up and going to grab his prizes here. I was hoping he had them just sitting on his desk. Because that's what a serious claw gamer would do, but he's already back. He's sitting back down now.
What?
So he's already got him.
Yeah, I just had him right here. Here's Aardvark, the woolly mammoth.
Oh, he does look like an Aardvark. Wait, hold it up to the camera again. Let him get a better look. Look at that schnoz. Yeah. Joey's holding a stuffed woolly mammoth, very small.
He's about the size of your hand. I got this thing. I don't actually know what this is.
That's off-brand Barney.
He looks like Barney, but like not like a dinosaur. He's like some sort of blob, basically. Same color as Barney. And I'm pretty sure I won this in a claw game.
Well,
Blueberry.
Oh, it's a classic. It's a classic blue bear. Nothing wrong with that.
It was either a fair or something. Maybe it was something else. But yeah, I mean,
okay.
I can win those claw games.
You've convinced me. I take it back. I think maybe there just weren't any job offerings when you were currently.
So keep trying. Keep trying.
In the game. Well, yeah, if you want to, if that's the career path you want to go down, be careful because once that guy in the suit comes and takes you away, there's no turning back. Just like
one chance, one opportunity. Just like there's people who call me all the time saying this is the only chance you get to win this great hotel opportunity, right?
Right.
They say if you hang up now, you'll never get this opportunity again. And then when they call me back 2 days later and say the same thing,
That's right. It's high. Yeah,
The
high
opportunity
stakes.
has reappeared. Yes.
Well, Joey, something that I've been, I love sitcoms. Sitcoms are they're my security blanket media to consume. They're the ones
Sure.
where I can sit down and trust that I'm going to have a good time. And I've watched The Office enough times through where I don't need to watch it again. Even though I did watch all the Christmas episodes this year, I don't need to rewatch that one. I've seen Community 3 times through. I love my sitcom. But there was one that recently came back into my life, and it actually came from the recommendation. My brother's always telling me to watch stuff, so I don't always watch everything he tells me because there's so many recommendations. But he recommended the show to me, and then also there's a podcast that I'll blank out the first word in it, but it's Blank Town is what it's called.
Come Town.
There you go. These guys. The guys on Come Town, if you ever listen to Come Town, they make fun of everybody and everything, right? They don't respect anybody. They would probably, I've always thought about if like those guys ever watched anything we made, it would hurt my feelings so much, the things that they could say, I'm sure. But one thing that they said while they're making fun of other sitcoms was that Bernie Mac, the Bernie Mac show, was like one of the last great sitcoms. And I was like, what? You guys had something nice about something? I mean, they have nuanced opinions. I don't want to. But anyways, this is something I was surprised. And this was right after my brother told me that Bernie Mac show is on Amazon. He was like, oh, dude, you got to watch it. And I remember watching the Bernie Mac show when I was a kid. It was a show that we loved together, or like we watched together. My family and I loved it. But Bernie Mac, he's funny. He's really funny. Okay? And here's the thing. Bernie Mac is in the Bernie Mac show, he's the original vlogger. Okay? Part of the thing that makes the Bernie Mac show unique. Have you ever seen it?
No, I've never seen even a single episode.
Do you know you know who Bernie Mac is, right? You've seen Oceans.
He was the guy in Ocean's 11.
Right. And he's in other things too, but he's one of these stand-up comics who made it big. And then, of course, if you're a big stand-up comic in the early 2000s, you have to have a TV show that has your name in the title. So
yes.
He made the Bernie Mac show, which is actually created by Larry Wilmore. That was actually, like it always says at the beginning, created by Larry Wilmore.
Who's Larry Wilmore?
He's you may remember him from the he replaced the time slot for the Colbert Report.
Oh yeah,
and it's unfortunate.
Yes, the guy with the glasses.
Yes,
who sometimes pretended he was an alien.
Yes, he was.
Yes.
Honestly, I liked some of the stuff he's been involved in, but
it was like a panel show, wasn't it, where he would bring in celebrities and they would argue about topical things.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be also like kind of in the vein of The Daily Show. It didn't do so well, but I like Larry Wilmore, and I think he's maybe just not. His ideas are great. His writing is good, and you can really see that in the Bernie Mac show. So just a brief synopsis of like the premise of the show. Bernie Mac's sister is a crackhead, and she goes to rehab, and she's from the South Side of Chicago, and her kids move to LA and live with Bernie Mac, and he's now their guardian. And the show is mostly him taking care of them in kind of his like post-career days, which is like his late 40s. Like he's basically a stay-at-home dad in the show, and his wife works for a telecom company, and she's a career woman, which is also a unique dynamic because Bernie Mac has to be kind of the stay-at-home dad, which is a nice foundation for whatever you want to make this sitcom about.
Whatever hijinks are about to ensue. Yeah.
Right. And it's Bernie Mac. He's got a teenage now, like they're basically his kids, even though they're not. It's his sister's kids, but he's got a teenager girl named Vanessa. Then he's got a like preteen kid, or even I think he's even younger. He's like 8 or 9, named Jordan. And then Brianna is like the youngest one. She's like 4, and he calls her baby girl. She's like really young. So he's got various ages and genders there. But really, I'm impressed by how ambitious the production of the show is. It's honestly, it kind of transcends just your typical sitcom. Similar, I would say, in some ways to Community, in the way that they
really?
Genre bend, depending on the topic. which I don't remember as a kid. As a kid, I was like, this is just a sitcom. And a lot of episodes are pretty cookie cutter sitcom, but they regularly go outside the boundaries and do pretty creative stuff. Like, for instance, there's an episode where Bernie Mac tries to get his kids to do extra chores for him. And the kids are like, well, we want extra payment for our for allowance if you're going to make us do these extra chores. And Bernie Mac doesn't want to pay them, so they unionize and go on strike. And it literally is a commentary on like workers' rights and like unions. And Bernie, he's at the grocery store. He's trying to deal with his kids not doing chores. Like, the house is a mess. He goes to the grocery store, and these like teenage kids are out skateboarding in the parking lot, and they ask him for money. And Bernie Mac's like, get a job. And then he goes, wait a minute. And then he hires them as scabs. And they clean his house.
That's amazing.
And then, which I thought was great. And they always have, I feel like on a lot of these episodes, there's a good commentary and like a lesson to learn at the end of the episode. But unfortunately, I didn't really love the lesson in this one, because Bernie hires these scabs, and his kids move out into the backyard in a tent, and they form like a shanty town because they're unemployed and they can't live in the house anymore. And Bernie Mac eventually like lures the youngest one in with like ice cream, and then the next like youngest one.
Yeah, he breaks the picket line.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then he finally gets Vanessa, the oldest one, who was the union leader, to give it up. And basically, like, the story was like, you have to cooperate with the owner.
You
class.
better fold, or the man will get you.
Yeah, which it was like a nice return to the base settings of the show to resolve the plot. But honestly, I was like, I don't really like that as a story. Like, I wish it was a different lesson. I wish somehow the kids could win. But it was still an ambitious episode with like the premise. Because it's at times it's like, okay, this is a stretch. Like, is their life only about doing chores? But it really works for like the topic of the show. Another one that they did is their Thanksgiving episode, where Bernie Mac is a glutton and he wants to have his own turkey for Thanksgiving, because the kids always eat some of his turkey. So he prepares his own turkey on a separate grill, but one of the kids runs past it and turns the heat really far down low on accident, and they don't know. And I didn't know this, but my dad told me he knows how to cook turkeys, and he told me that if you try to slow cook a turkey and you don't do it at the right temperature, it just breeds bacteria. And it's
God.
really, it's like specifically turkeys, especially big turkeys, can have this issue. So you have to know how to cook it. So Bernie gets really sick from that, and he gets a fever, and he starts hallucinating. And one of his hallucinations is he becomes claymation. So there's a whole section of the show that's Bernie Mac and these kids as claymation characters. And I was watching this with my dad, and he was like, what is this, the Community Christmas episode? Which I was like, they totally transcend they totally change
the medium.
mediums. In the middle of the show. And then he wakes up, and then he goes to the bathroom to throw up, and he falls asleep in the bathroom and starts hallucinating again. And this time he's on an airplane, and he looks out the window, and he sees one of his kids, but she's a monster, and she's on the wing. She's destroying the airplane. And he keeps trying to tell everyone, these kids are out here destroying the plane, and nobody believes him. And it's like, for shot, a remake of the Twilight Zone episode. That's the exact same premise.
Shatner, yeah.
And I'm just sitting here, I'm like, this is amazing, dude. Like, Bernie Mac is so ambitious with this show.
That's cool.
And they cover plenty of other things. Like, they do an episode where they're the United Nations, where him and his wife have to have a united front with their kids on discipline, and then his wife doesn't want to be as disciplined, so they break up the UN, and the kids, who are like the rogue nations, totally overrun her, and Bernie Mac has to use his military might to bring order back. And they're very straight up about religion. There's an episode where Bernie Mac tries to use literal interpretation of the Bible to force one of his kids to behave, but then his kid reads more of the Bible and starts using it back on the other family members. Because one of the things Bernie Mac loves to do, he never does it, but like one of his shticks is that he wants to like murder these kids and like physically harm them. And he's always, when he's talking to the camera, he's like, no, America, You know me, it's like I'm just saying it. You're thinking it too, America. I'm gonna kill those kids one day, but I'm not gonna do it. But I'm gonna kill these kids, and so he goes in the Bible and shows the part where it's like, if your son isn't honoring his parents, then you can stone your kid to death, and that will please the Lord. But then his kid is like, well, he starts interpreting all these other things. He tears up Bernie Mac's autographed picture of Kobe Bryant because he's practicing idolatry, and he also pours out all his alcohol and all this other stuff. And it's and really at the end of the day, the lesson for that one is Christianity's kind of crazy, which I thought was pretty out there, kind of risky for a family sitcom. Which I would say Bernie Mac airs on kind of the more adult side of family sitcoms, but still, I think acceptable for all audiences. So I don't know. It's great. It's been a really refreshing show to watch, especially on those. Some episodes are a little bit more mundane, but there's some really good ones in there. And I've just been really impressed. Bernie Mac, rest in peace, by the way. He died way too early.
Yeah. No, that sounds cool. That sounds like a fun time. I mean, I guess like in those sort of situations, I mean, it's not the first time that kind of like situational comedy has come up.
Oh yeah.
They're like. I mean, they play with that trope in BoJack Horseman, or like the single guy has to take care of a bunch of kids, and like he's totally outnumbered, and also totally out of his league about what needs to happen and everything. It's just like a classic sitcom situation, and for them to like take that and then build on it with all these other things is pretty cool.
Yeah, so, I feel like it's just really taking advantage of what you have in a sitcom, which is like characters. Like, so you have a standard, you're gonna return to like normal at the end. And then you just kind of go from there. I'm excited to keep watching it and just enjoy some Bernie Mac, dude. He's magic. I would just watch it if he was the only character.
Yeah, sounds cool. All right, so I got something big to talk to you about.
Big.
Are you ready for this one?
Yes.
I don't know if you're ready.
Oh no.
I think you're okay. We'll see. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago on your Twitch stream, you played this video of a guy who was laying out the simulation argument.
Yes.
While he was playing Call of Duty, and it's very compelling.
Camper killer commentary. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool. Okay, so basically the simulation argument is pretty simple. Imagine it is possible to create a simulated reality. And it's so close to real life that you can't tell that you're in a simulated reality or in real life. So simulated realities are going to be cheaper than real realities. So it stands to reason that if you can make one simulation, then you can make many. Therefore, if all things being equal, if there's an evenly distributed chance of you waking up in any universe, then there's a more likely chance you'll end up in a simulated reality than a real reality. Does that make sense?
I think that's pretty succinctly put. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like this argument has a couple of flaws. But first of all, humans cannot yet create simulations that are indistinguishable from reality. We don't know of any simulations that currently exist that can do that. Secondly, if we assume there are aliens out there that could create simulations, why would they? Even if we assume that in the future humans could create simulations or some other entity could create simulations, like what's the reason that they would do that? There doesn't really seem to be a good reason why we would. Maybe simply because we can, but that's not really like a satisfying answer.
Well,
maybe there's like an ancestry simulation thing. So like maybe they're trying to better understand history. I've heard that argument before. It's kind of a possibility. What do you think?
Well, what if it's a video game?
A video game that's just life?
Yes. What if there's a main character somewhere and you and I are just NPCs? And the story is happening somewhere else. And what if it's just Planet Simulator, where they put the settings, they decided what the air was going to be like, and they're just walking around and they're like being a normal character, and crazy shit happens all the time. Interesting enough for some alleged main character, and the rest of us are just programmed to exist and help to maintain the simulation, to just be here in the simulation. It's just simulating.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess the argument you're trying to make is like, if you're in a simulation, then you can't tell the difference because you're limited by your like perception, which like, that's pretty compelling. But there's no like, the point is like, we don't really know if this is even possible that we could do this.
Yeah.
Nor do we like, and like, I don't know. I think like that reason could be true if we're like limiting our perceptions to what we have right now. But the point is, like, we can't actually do it ourselves, and we don't know of anybody who can do it. So, like, it's kind of the biggest problem I have with the simulation argument is, like, why does it matter? So what?
Right.
It's interesting from a certain perspective, but it doesn't help you understand the universe better or change the way you should live your life. The simulation argument is really similar to this philosophical thing called last Thursdayism. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Basically, so last Thursdayism is this line of philosophical thought that the universe was created very recently, maybe as recently as last Thursday. And all memory and evidence of history is actually just a simulation or an illusion or just put there by magic. But, like, the problem with last Thursdayism and the simulation argument is they fall against Occam's razor. There are too many assumptions. And even if they are true, like, it doesn't change the way you should live your life, right? As if the world is acting as if the world is not real. Does not lead you to a more fulfilling or better understanding of yourself. It just kind of makes you crazy.
Well, unless you want to be a nihilist.
Well, not even then, though, because if you're trying to get to the point where nothing matters and you want to pursue existentialism, the universe as we know it today is evidence enough of your own personal lack of importance. You don't need a universe to be simulated to realize your life is meaningless, and the only meaning is absurd. Like the only meaning would be something that you create for yourself, and it has to come from within. There's plenty of evidence that will lead you to that conclusion in the reality that we think exists right now. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Again, not sufficient, I don't think. Yeah, but this idea. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, in general, I look at it as like a fun mental exercise where you can kind of get existential, but like you said, at the end of the day, it's like not really all that important.
But I don't actually want to talk about the simulation argument. I think, like, I've laid out what I want to say. Mm-hmm. But this idea that we live in a simulation is starting to gain popularity, I think. I hear people say it as if, like, they're feeling like they live in a simulation, or they feel like things aren't real, or everything is becoming so absurd. And I think they are hitting on something. I think they're detecting something. But it's not that we live in a simulation. It is something else altogether. And that thing is an idea that I came across recently called the Society of the Spectacle. So this is an idea that was originally proposed by this guy named Guy Debord. He is, like, a French philosopher and, like, critical, like, theorist. He was a major Marxist too. The stuff that he talks about he has a couple of books. One of them is called The Society of Spectacle. The other one is called Comments on the Society of Spectacle, which was like a follow-up to some of his criticism on that. And it's all about like a view of the world that I find very interesting and very compelling. It's both very simple and also very complicated. I don't feel like I completely understand it yet, but based on the things that I've read, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of it. Let me explain it to you the best way I can do it. Okay. Everything I read about this, like, they quote directly from his book, and it's always so dense. And, like, every time I read a sentence from it, I'm like, what does that mean? I don't understand. All these words together, I understand individually, but together they don't make any sense to me. Anyway, he proposes that we live in a society of the spectacle. And the spectacle is this idea that reality is being replaced by a collection of images that replicate reality. Reality is being replaced by images or maybe even simulations of reality itself. Okay, so there's like many different ways you could take this, and it does take it in many, many ways. There's a quote from the book. In societies where modern conditions of production prevail, all of life presents itself as an immense accumulation of spectacles. Everything that was directly lived has moved away into representation. So the idea is that we live in this world that is a representation of reality. All of lived experience is becoming recorded and filtered into media or advertising or propaganda or whatever. And that's how we experience those things. But those things aren't those things. Those are images or replacements of those things. But we've gotten to this point where we can't tell the difference between reality and spectacle. And we think that the spectacle is reality. And even the people that are perpetuating this idea of a spectacle don't even know the difference themselves. The deceivers become deceived, is what he says in the book. I have a couple of interesting examples. And one of the things that he says that I think really kind of hit home for me is being gives way to having, and having gives way to appearing. And I came up with this example myself. I'm very proud of it. You ready?
Okay.
Imagine you have a value, and that value is I want to be clean. I like it when my house is clean, and I want to be clean. You spend all your time cleaning your house. One day, somebody invents a vacuum cleaner, and you're like, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. You see an ad for it. They're like, look how awesome this is. It cleans your house so much faster, so much more efficiently, so much less energy. You could get on doing other things besides cleaning your house. You say, that's great. So you go out and you buy a vacuum cleaner. Now, that desire to be clean suddenly resulted in you having a vacuum cleaner. And in fact, as time goes on, you see more and more ads for vacuum cleaners. And they're like, this vacuum cleaner is going to revolutionize cleaning the same way that first vacuum cleaner revolutionized cleaning. You're like, well, I got to get that, obviously, right? And then it stops being so much about using the vacuum cleaner as it is about having the vacuum cleaner. If you go over to someone else's house and they don't have a vacuum cleaner, then what's wrong with them? Are they not clean? I don't know if I can trust this guy. He doesn't own a vacuum cleaner. So again, being clean gives way to having something. No, but it goes a step further because it's not even about having the vacuum cleaner. It's just about appearing to have a vacuum cleaner. You start to see all these like posts on social media where people are posing with their vacuum cleaners saying, look, I got this newest thing. You should get it too. But that person isn't cleaning their house. And they didn't get that vacuum cleaner either. They were given it to by the vacuum cleaner company to sell more vacuum cleaners. Ooh. They are just appearing to have the value of being clean or appearing to have something. And that makes them be something. You following me?
To a certain extent.
Okay, so the idea is like appearances become reality, right? Mm-hmm. And that appearance, it only has to extend to the idea of owning something. And that's where like the big capitalist critique comes in, is that a lot of our worldview is shaped by advertising and shaped by media that enforces that advertising. And so there's all these things that we think we need because we've been told we need them by people that are trying to sell us stuff.
Right.
And they think we have values that are built on this idea of owning things. And there's even like this idea that like, if you eventually purchase something, you will be fulfilled. You'll be happy. There's a certain something out there that if you can buy, suddenly your life is more complete. And that's really what you're chasing. But again, like this is a lie that's been sold to you by these people that are perpetuating this spectacle of images. And again, like the spectacle is not it's not like just a series of images. It's an entire worldview. It's a social relationship among people mediated by images. So yeah, it's kind of complicated, but the idea is pretty simple, which is that your experience of reality has been replaced with images of reality. It's kind of like this twisted kaleidoscope of different things, all these different ideas and like, thoughts and just the random like values are all strewn together, picked apart to have these tiny fractures of each other, and then reconfigured into this collage of that original picture. But it's not the original picture. It's made up of all these other worldviews that are shaping your worldview. And at this point, you're so far down the rabbit hole that you can't tell what's real and what's not.
Wow.
Another great example is of course Donald Trump. Donald Trump is like the very essence of the spectacle. And I can do an example. Let's say what's something that Donald Trump cares about? Power. Power is something I think we can all relate to as a value, right? I want to have power over my life. I want to have power over other people. That's something I feel like everyone can relate to in some way.
Sure.
Well, how do you be powerful? Well, you can have money, right? If you have a lot of money, then you become powerful, and that's good. But Donald Trump doesn't have a lot of money. He's actually like millions and millions of dollars in debt. But it doesn't matter because he appears to have a lot of money and therefore has power. And because of that, we put him in the most powerful position in the Western world, which is, President of the United States. So his appearance of being powerful or having money led to him being the most powerful person. Isn't that, I mean, it's just kind of backwards in a way.
Yeah.
It's this twisted idea of like, it doesn't actually matter what you are as much as it is what you appear to be. The same thing with like Instagram models, right? Or Instagram influencers. You know, if you see them standing with like a, next to a nice car or in front of a big house or something, it doesn't matter if they own that car or if that house is rented, and they're just modeling in front of it.
Or if they even own the clothes that they're wearing.
Right. It just matters that they appear in that situation, and that creates that desire within you to be like them.
Right.
Right. Or it even goes even further than that. Like, what about them just people pretending to be happy, right?
Yes.
These people appear happy and therefore they must be happy, right? But you don't see all of the strife they're going through. And maybe they are living, more interesting life than you, but you don't know that for sure. You don't know them at all. Like, social media has come to this point where like you aren't interacting with real people anymore. You're interacting with individual spectacles of people. You're interacting with images of people, not them themselves. These are perfect, like carefully curated ideas of what this person wants to be, not necessarily who they are.
Especially when we're all locked inside and we can't interact with anybody in person for the most part. It only reinforces that for sure. Exactly.
Like that kind of like super online stuff is definitely accelerating this process. And I mean, this book was written like in the 1960s, I think. So like, this is not what he was talking about when he wrote it, but it was it's become very prescient because he's starting to see something that is, he's starting to see something that was going to happen even more and more and more.
Yeah,
and
no,
like,
I definitely. I mean, one of the things, as you were describing it, it's like in advertising. Because growing up, I wasn't as aware of the media I was consuming, and that includes advertising. And you'd see things in commercials, and you're like, yeah, of course that's in a commercial because that's what life is like. But now that I've gotten a little bit older and I can think for myself a little bit more, I get so pissed off when I see a commercial, and I'm like, that is not what life is like. Like imagine being outside, like taking the trash out and asking your neighbor if he knew that he could save money on his car insurance if he switches to something. I pull my hair out when I see that. I'm like, that would never happen. We would never pass in like that kind of information back and forth as small talk. This is garbage that you would even imply that that's a normal thing. This is absurd and insulting. But their whole point is to try to push across this idea that, oh no, this is very normal, common knowledge thing that you should know as well. And you should think like these people here and purchase car insurance from us. This is what normal is.
That is exactly it. It's this perpetuation of a certain worldview. It's pretty fascinating when you start thinking about it. Like, think about the idea of heterosexuality as being a normal thing, right?
Yeah.
It's this kind of code at this point where if you see a man and a woman together in an ad or a TV show or anything like that, you know that they're going to end up together at some point, right? That's like that's almost a joke, but that's the way it is. And these shows and stuff are not talking about the relationship or the merits, if there are any, of heterosexuality. They are taking it as granted, right? And that helps perpetuate this idea that it is normal. And the more you see of that, the less you are willing to open your mind to other possibilities of, even homosexual relationships, or even something more like strange, or I don't want to say strange, but less conventional than that,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It's this idea that this is what normal is. Exactly what you said. This is what normal is, and we're going to use that to talk about other things, right? That stuff that they don't talk about, the stuff that's in the background, is what they're saying is normal. The stuff you don't have to question, and therefore you don't question, right? I mean, it's the same thing with like any sort of successful ad campaign, like halitosis, the like bad breath as a medical condition, was invented by mouthwash companies, right? Like
right.
That whole idea is something that was created by advertisers to sell people things, and they said this is something that you should worry about, and it becomes the thing, right? But it's even further than that, because even people that are conscious of this kind of idea still fall into this trap, because they will use the idea of like heterosexuality as a normal thing as to perpetuate whatever story they want to tell, because it's easier that way, right? If you see a man and woman together, like holding hands or something, they don't have to say, okay, there's this thing called marriage where two people couple up and it's this normal thing, right? They don't have to explain any of that, right? Because you already know what it is because of all the other media you've consumed. They're using the language of the spectacle to help perpetuate their own story, which is just feeding into the spectacle. And that's the other thing too, is that the spectacle subsumes everything that tries to interact with it, right? If you try to directly go at it, you end up being part of it. It's the same idea of capitalism, like subsuming dissent, right? If you have a dissenting opinion and you want, or like you have something that you want to get out there, all you have, capitalism will eat that up and let you sell that idea of dissent to other people who feel like they're going to dissent. And ultimately, the spectacle in a capitalist society, the only way you can ever act within the spectacle is to buy, right? If you think Alex Jones is the greatest like news program out there, if you think InfoWars is the only place where news is going to come from, how do you act on that belief?
You buy nutraceuticals, brother.
Exactly. That's all it takes, right? And like maybe you buy an InfoWars shirt, and like that appearance of supporting InfoWars is enough for people to believe that it is something that you consume, right? And therefore they can make judgments about you, even though you haven't done anything. You've just contributed to the same cycle that has perpetuated this thing that exists now. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's this perpetuating all eating thing. And that's the other like very strange thing about the spectacle, is that it erases history. It says, this is how things have always been. Don't look too far into the past. This is how it's always been. It's always like this, right?
Yes.
We never thought differently. This is always how it is. And yet it's constantly changing. It's constantly adapting to whatever new thing is coming into the zeitgeist and erasing its previous opinions.
Like,
I was talking to my brother.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things that I've seen for that is the way Verizon Wireless, like they advertise right now. Their whole thing is multiracial family that's all so excited about having Verizon Wireless. Like they'll show the typical Verizon Wireless customer, and it's always this family that, first off, the thing that's most important to them is putting their arms over their other family members and smiling together in front of a Verizon Wireless logo. But also, it's so obvious that they're trying to pick as many races as possible to say all the races love Verizon Wireless.
That's right.
And they're all families, too. That's all things that we've always felt this way here at Verizon Wireless.
That's right. Don't ever look at other commercials, because I also had black people in it.
Right.
Don't question us on that. No, I was talking to my brother about this, and he was like, this is how, like, that's kind of how, like, gay marriage, like what felt was like, right? It almost felt like there was turned on a dime, right? Where suddenly most people were in agreement about how they felt about gay marriage. But before, it was something that was was way more taboo. It was something that people didn't like to talk about. It was being gay was not a good thing, right? It's still kind of used as a like an insult in some, like for some people and stuff. It's not it was this idea that we kind of just came to all at once. And after that, right, corporations started incorporating, like, we're inclusive, we love gay people into their messaging, right? Like Pride Month is this whole joke, right, where they change all their logos to like be rainbow logos and then immediately change them back as soon as Pride Month's over, right? Like it's this idea that like it just gets subsumed into it, and not like before that ruling, right? Before we kind of made up our mind about how we felt about gay marriage, politicians and companies were always, kind of chicken footing, like kind of towing the line, but never quite going over it, right? They were never saying, oh, we're for gay marriage or anything, right? They were always just kind of like, we'll come back to us on that, or maybe not right now. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're not ready for that right now.
I'd go beyond it to say that there was people who were publicly anti-gay until then as well. And then it became a position that was untenable. And now those same people are able to move beyond that and be like, forget that I ever had that opinion, by the way.
Yes, exactly.
Moving on. Like, it's not even that I've moved on. It's that it was never something that I cared that much about.
I never actually believed it. I never really thought that way.
Right.
Really.
Well, it's kind of you hear some of these people who are a little bit more socially conservative, and now that you can't be openly hostile to homosexuals, they're openly hostile and they're transphobic, where they're like, Harry Styles can't wear a dress because that is we're feminizing all of our men, and that's bad. And that's something that we can still be openly hostile towards. So that's what we're going to do. Please forget that not that long ago, 8 years ago, I was going on the same tirade, fear-mongering tirade about how gay marriage was going to destroy family values.
Yes, exactly. And this is the weird thing about the spectacle, right? Is that there are it's not necessarily evil necessarily. It just obscures reality. It makes it hard to understand what's real because it's always telling you what's real, but never really representing reality. It's just representing what everyone thinks reality is. And it's like this, it's the same idea of you get all your ideas about what the right wing believes from left wing YouTubers. It's like, I have this idea of what the right wing believes because I watch all this political content, but it all comes from the same direction. And therefore they've created this spectacle of what a right winger believes without ever actually having to engage with the reality of what someone who actually holds those positions does. Right. It's not just a straw man. Because the people that you're interacting with actually probably believe that this is the best arguments they have, or the best idea of them they have, right? The deceivers have become deceived. We don't even know, the people that we're supposed to be able to trust with their information don't even know that they don't have the information, right? They're just as lost in the spectacle as we are.
And that's super important because it's easy to get high and mighty and be like, oh, look at all these other fools who have fallen victim to the illusion. But I unfortunately find myself, if you look back at previous beliefs, and you can actually see, it's easy to look at in social media because it's still there. You can be like, oh man, I can't believe I retweeted that or liked that or thought that at that time. I look back at all the Russiagate hysteria, and I was never super publicly a Russiagate big guy, but there's a lot of times where I was like, why did I waste my time believing a lot of the things just because it seemed like it was true and it was what I was being shown, and it makes you so difficult to be certain of almost anything because it's just what you're being told.
It's that ever shifting nature that gives people this idea that we live in this absurd, simulation ridden world. It's this idea that we're not in reality anymore because we can't tell what's real because what we're being told is real keeps changing and it keeps shifting from under us. And the more and more we engage with the spectacle, the more we perpetuate it, but also the more lost we get, right? And that kind of brings me to I don't actually know how to best fight this. The board gives a couple of examples. One thing I heard was stop interacting with media as much and start interacting with real people. Organizing as a collective, coming together and interacting with real people is the only way to fight this. Because once you understand your fellow man, you understand that you're actually not that different. And there's actually a lot of things that you can come together on. But if you're only interacting with images of them, you're never going to get there, right? Because they have just as much wrong about you as you have about them. And because they've been fed that same spectacle and they've been fed down a different tube, that goes down a different line that shows them some other worldview that doesn't make any sense to them either, right? The other thing is DeBoer always starts his chapters with different quotes from other media. And I don't really exactly understand how this works, but I believe he's trying to hijack elements of the spectacle to help perpetuate his idea of how to fight it, basically. And I don't know exactly how that works because the more you interact with it directly, the less more your message gets diluted. And I have a really good example for that. But one of the things he does is he takes these ideas from different media and tries to change them or reframe them using this other worldview and shows oh, this is actually about this, or this is really what this is talking about, or what this is really pitching. It makes you a little more critical of those things that you took for granted. But I don't know if that really is his message. I'm not exactly sure. Again, he's very hard to understand. So I feel like I have a grasp of it, but it still slips through my fingers so much.
Well, I just feel like this is a difficult concept to grasp in general. Yeah. But I want to go back to saying about the pipeline of other people. And really, that's why whenever people are like, I just can't be friends with someone who doesn't have the same political views as me, I'm like, that's not very productive because you just don't know those people very well. I have plenty of friends that vehemently disagree with me politically, but I value them as friends because they help me to stay attached to someone who's on the outside of my bubble, who I can go to and help to try to see reality.
Right. They're just as lost as anybody else,
Right.
but they at least give you pause on what you believe, right?
Yeah.
It gives you this idea that like, oh, I don't actually have everything right necessarily, or
Definitely.
or even just like, oh, I think I actually do have this right, and let me back that up more, right? It becomes this, it becomes a much more productive situation, and the more that you organize with those people, the less you're getting your reality from sources that don't get their reality from reality either. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When the news is reporting on the news, like what even is the news anymore? It's like it's about nothing at some point.
Yeah. So
okay, so here's my example. I got this from a YouTube channel. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos on this. There was only one that was actually pretty good, which is this YouTube channel called Plastic Pills. Personally, I find the guy kind of obnoxious, but his video on Society of Spectacle was pretty good. So it was the best one I found of the three I watched. There's another woman, I think her name is, I think it's like Mad Bladder or something. Not Mad Hatter. Hold on, let me find it. How can you find it?
Sounds like you're doing a little bit more academic stuff on YouTube than I am, Joey.
You know what I watch on YouTube right now? I watch videos of Dave Rubin look like an idiot.
Oh, I love those videos.
Love those. Dave Rubin Clips, great YouTube channel. Go check it out. I love those videos. He's such a fool. And it's so fun to make fun of him.
I recently watched Hassan react to a video of Dave Rubin getting dunked on, like a compilation
It's pretty freaking good.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. Mad Blender. That's her name.
Okay.
She gives this example of a Macklemore song. I don't think I've actually heard the song. It's a song where I think it's called Flying or like something about.
Yes. Is it about
Nike
buying
shoes.
tennis shoes?
Yes, it is. So the song is about how when Macklemore was a kid, he liked to play basketball and he always looked up to Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan told him to buy Nike shoes because that's what Michael Jordan does. He sells shoes and cries and memes. That's the only two things that Michael Jordan does. So Macklemore, at the end of the song, he comes to the realization that he was kind of sold a lie, that the shoes weren't actually the thing that made him special. They were just a product, and he had been sold a dream and like kind of fallen on his face. And some of the other Macklemore songs are kind of anti-consumerist in some ways as well. But Nike approached Macklemore and said, "Hey, we like your song. Can we put it in a Nike commercial?" And he said, "I guess so." So they did, and they cut out all the anti-consumerist stuff in the commercial.
They put the part where I wanna fly, can you take me far away? Which is it's like a kid's choir singing it. It's very hypnotic and beautiful, and it's somebody dunking, like it's somebody flying through the air gracefully, of course, because that's really aesthetically pleasing.
Exactly. And he's like, so everyone's like, "Macklemore, you sold out, I can't believe you did this." And he's like, "Well, people who like the song or like the commercial will maybe like the song, and they'll download the song and listen to the whole thing, and then they'll get the message anyway, right? Like, isn't this a way to reach more people?" But not really, because it's still part of the spectacle. It's still part of this ad to sell shoes. The message gets diluted, right? Because it's like got this asterisk behind it of like, well, maybe it won't work for you, but it worked for Macklemore. So eventually Macklemore made that bag. He got the money. So it's like it becomes this. It consumes or subsumes these messages of dissent and makes it part of the messaging and dilutes this thing that was supposed to be supposed to be critical of the society, of the spectacle, and instead became another part of the spectacle.
It's literally, and that's
the danger of it.
Yeah, it's so direct. It's supposed to be at the very least anti-buying Nike or Jordans. And then
yes,
used explicitly for that purpose.
Right. And I mean, that's the brilliance of these marketing campaigns, right? Is that they understand people's brains well enough to like get that in there and understand how these things work to like, even if they're not aware of what they're doing as far as like destroying an idea of dissent, they are because it's profitable, right? They understand, they're motivated by something that's leading them to that conclusion, which you know, I mean, that's not great exactly. It's I don't know exactly how to take that. It's like it's just a dangerous pitfall, I guess. Something that like no matter what your intentions are, you can end up falling into.
Right. We live in a society, Joey.
I knew you were going to say that, and I was really trying to avoid it.
When at the beginning, I didn't want to interrupt.
You were biting your tongue.
I was going to say you had me at society.
Oh my gosh.
But
anyway,
yeah.
So I hope that breaks your brain a little bit.
No,
so.
you've absolutely shattered my mind, and I think that's a great place to leave it at. Here at the end of this episode, we went from the my fantasy football championship to the comedy stylings of Bernie Mac, all the way to the illusion of our society. So, what was the key word for that? What was the catchphrase word for that again? The what was that concept called?
The Society of the Spectacle.
Society of the Spectacle. Oh man.
There is a documentary that he made, which I would not recommend. It is the most boring thing. I watched about half of it and I fell asleep. You know how like there's like this idea of like black and white like art documentaries that are like really just random images.
Yes.
And it's just like
I've seen exactly what you're talking about at a museum before, where it's like so artsy that it doesn't make any sense at all, which is why it's in a museum.
Yes, that's what this documentary is. It's literally like a third of it is just topless women, and like another third of it is like military, like displays of military force, like cargo carriers shooting off planes, and then the other third is like police beating up people. And then there's like random parts where they just put text on the screen, and there's this guy who like reads in a monotone voice. I think he reads the entire like book just in a monotone voice, and it's so dense. I can only get glimpses of it throughout it, and I'm just like, oh my god. So
wait, is that supposed to be?
Don't watch the video.
It's supposed to be so unappealing that it doesn't adhere to like conventional media.
I guess I don't know what the point was. It's directed by Guy Debord, so I have to believe that he like this was the intention that he wanted, right? But I just it was. You can hear the whooshing noise the entire time of the whole thing going over my head in an hour and 27 minutes. So,
ooh, well, that's dense. But I think I want to leave it there, Joey. I think I want to wrap it up there. So let's do our lines like we always do. You can subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. Also on Spotify, by the way.
And wherever you listen to us, make sure you leave us a review so that we can keep podcasting.
So we get paid in reviews. And that's help us pay up. You can reach us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok at Affable Chat on all three, or send us an email, affablechat@gmail.com.
We also have a YouTube channel where we perpetuate a spectacle of images.
Yes, you might be watching us on there right now. And also, Affable Chat is live on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/AffableChat. And I think that's going to wrap things up around here for Affable Chat. I'm Benjamin.
And I'm Joey.
Thanks for listening.